Hello again. I'm glad you've returned for another session of our study, Getting Beyond How Are You? Learning to Connect in a Disconnected World. I'm Barbara Black. So here's a look at some of our upcoming sessions. In week 5, we're going to talk about questions in the family. And week 6, we'll learn how to ask questions of new acquaintances. So for homework, you were asked to prepare 3 to 5 hot button topics with a 1 to 2 sentence description of what specifically you like to talk about within your hot button topic. The list of topics combined with your 1 to 2 sentence description for each topic will give your conversational partner a starting point for pursuing a robust and diverse conversation with you. Today's session, number 4, is all about your own hot button topics. If you're viewing alone, there's going to be plenty of video example conversations to inspire you. And if you're viewing with a group, you'll be able to practice the activities you observe on the video. Just simply pause the video after each example conversation and do the same thing in your group. Instructions will be provided. Afterwards, resume the recording. If you are viewing alone, there's still going to be plenty of great examples for you to learn how to get to know your colleagues, acquaintances, and friends better. So our assignment during the week was to think about this question. In what ways have you been prodded, or has God prodded you to grow this past year? And how have you responded to this or his prodding? Have you seen specific results to your growth? As I pondered the question, I thought, I don't really have an answer to this question at this time. Then my next thought was, well, why not? Am I growing in any way, or am I just strolling aimlessly through life? The more I reflected on the question, the idea came to me that the Christian life is like a hiking trail. There's a beginning and an end point, and what is in between is largely determined by the topography around us, the ups and downs. For example, at the beginning of many hiking trails, if they are very popular, there's often a well-graded surface, smooth and sometimes even paved, or at least well-worn, so you don't have to concentrate too much on your footing or your journey. You can spend time strolling along and talking with your companions. Then as you rise in elevation, you may come into some beauty spots where you may wish to stop for a while and enjoy the beauty all around and drink it all in again, enjoying your surroundings with your companions. Maybe then you come to some difficult places, maybe some uneven terrain with rocks and maybe mud or treacherous footing, which requires you to concentrate to avoid falling or veering off track. In these spots, perhaps you cease conversation with others around and keep your eyes on the path and your mind on what you're doing to maintain your safety and forward motion. And then there are even times when you get off the trail and are lost. In these times, rather than wander hopelessly around, the natural instinct is to stop and plant yourself somewhere, waiting for someone or something to rescue you, as was my husband's Bernie's experience recently when he got lost in the desert of Nevada. Then supposing you get through this lost time and you're back on track, but the terrain is much more technical, and there are fewer and fewer traveling companions along with you. There are times when you may talk out loud to yourself to remind yourself what you're doing and encourage yourself to keep going and to keep your eyes on the prize. For those who endure to the end, there is a great reward, usually of a beauty spot unrivaled and a feeling of satisfaction in having completed this arduous trail. Anyway, I thought of the Christian life like an adventure hike. Along our life's journey, or for Christians, we would say our Christian walk, we are often in areas of easy walking along with friends, or in beauty spots where we stop and rest, in rocky places where we draw into ourselves to concentrate on getting it right, or maybe off trail and lost where we just stop awaiting rescue, or along lonely spots or in very difficult places requiring all our concentration to maintain. But eventually, the way becomes clear and finally, the end seems to be in sight. Wherever you are today on this journey of life, if you're a Christian, you can remember that God is walking with you and you are never truly alone, even though you may feel that you are. As Christians, we have direct access to God at all times. We just have to ask for his guidance. Now, here's some encouragement for you along your way. We see in Hebrews 13, verse 5b, says, "For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you." You know, that verse has been a comfort to me for many years. It was one of the very first of God's many promises I learned close to 50 years ago when my journey with him began. Another one that's special is Matthew 28:20b. "And be sure of this, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." So be encouraged today, wherever you are on this life's journey, you are only alone if you choose to be. So let me say welcome again to our fourth week, and this one is on questions I wish others would ask me, or more commonly known as my hot button topics. You'll recall from week one that hot button topics were defined as those subjects which you're passionate about and you would enjoy talking about them. They're not subjects that get you heated or upset emotionally. So you were reminded earlier in the week to compile a listing of hot button topics and to have them before you as you view today. Again, if viewing in a group, you'll have opportunities to talk about your hot button topics, and your list will help facilitate our interaction time with a conversational partner today. Most people enjoy when you ask questions about them, as long as you don't probe too deeply. What should you do, though, if you're the one asking all the questions all the time and get nothing in return? Our modern term, then, when there's no response in a conversation, is getting back only crickets. These one-sided conversations quickly become very boring in the long run. In fact, it can even stop people from wanting to get to know another person that never reciprocates in the questioning process. So there is a solution, and it's detailed as an example from the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians 6:11-13, where he says, "We have spoken freely to you, Corinthians, and opened wide our hearts to you. We are not withholding our affection from you, but you are withholding yours from us. As a fair exchange, I speak as to my children, open wide your hearts also." This sounds to me very much like a balanced relationship, not a one-sided relationship. All good friendships involve mutual sharing. Christians refer to this mutual sharing as being in fellowship with one another. Fellowship is defined as a mutual sharing. So if we apply these ideas of mutual sharing or fellowshipping with one another, it would be a mutual sharing and conversation, not a single one-sided exchange. Our author, Melissa, describes herself as being very good at asking the questions, and therefore, in the past, she used to ask most of the questions in her relationships. One day, she says she was feeling discouraged, thinking that her friends didn't really care about her because they weren't asking her any questions. So one day she blurted out to one of her friends, "I'm frustrated. Do you know we've talked all night and you haven't asked me a single question? We always talk about you. I enjoy that, but when are we going to talk about me?" Does anyone else here have a friend who you would characterize as being like Melissa's friend? This kind of relationship requires the one thing questions to do all the work. It's sort of like playing tennis where your partner never hits the ball back to you. You're constantly going in search of the ball to hit again. If you had this kind of relationship experience, think about how you would deal with the one-sided exchange, how to get your partner to engage. If you're viewing with a group, you might wish to pause the video and discuss this question. Well, here's Melissa's friend's response. It was an awkward moment, but then she kindly said, "Melissa, I'd love to spend time talking about what's going on in your life. But whenever I ask a question, you quickly respond and then ask me something else. I just figured you were more comfortable asking me questions than talking about yourself." Besides, you ask such marvelous questions, it's hard for me to come up with any that are as good. Sometimes I just have a hard time knowing what to ask. I'm sorry you're so frustrated because I'm very interested in learning more about you. Our friendship is extremely important to me. Wouldn't you agree that Melissa's friend's response sounded like the response from a very mature friend? I'd love to have that kind of relationship, an even exchange, an open exchange between friends that aren't afraid of rejection or causing offense. Melissa goes on to say that her friend's words soothed her hurting spirit. And that reminds me of a proverb in the Bible, chapter 16, verse 24, which says, kind words are like honey, sweet to the soul and healthy for the body. Since fellowship involves a mutual or equal exchange, it's not one-sided. Our author David states that he had become quite good at asking questions. So when people would pick him up at the airport for a meeting where he was to be the featured speaker, he would ask all the questions to his host and they would give all the answers. He rarely revealed anything about himself. Once, one of these events garnered this response from his host: David, I was going to ask you all kinds of questions, but we've done nothing but talk about me. I almost feel guilty that I've talked so much. I didn't get to learn anything about you, and when am I going to have such a chance like this again? When one person asks all the questions and the other gives all the answers, what is missing in these exchanges is mutuality, mutual fellowship with one another. Once David started including this two-way element of mutuality or mutual fellowship into his conversations, the comments that he received were, for example, this has been a most meaningful time. I'm so glad we had the opportunity to get to know each other better. So conversation is mutually satisfying when there is a two-way element of mutuality. Now, when creating your hot button topic list, it's important, first of all, to ask yourself, what do I really enjoy talking about? If you don't know what you like to talk about yourself, someone might assume you're interested in a particular topic. Often, assumed interest in a topic comes when someone making an inference based on something that they already perceive you like. For example, your conversational partner might know that you like to walk along the beach. So your partner then infers that you like other things about the beach, such as fishing or shell collecting, snorkeling, swimming, sunbathing, or even dolphins. So they may begin a conversation with you, for example, about dolphins, and you really have no interest in or knowledge of dolphins at all, but then you're stuck. So in a moment, we will learn how to steer the conversation onto one of your hot button topics that you suggest, which will help eliminate this problem. Now, first of all, here are some hot button ticket topics for each of our authors, Melissa and David. Melissa likes to talk about drama, youth work, personal growth, and relationships, while her father David likes to talk about the church, spiritual awakening, history, current events, and theater and movies. I hope that you have thought about your own hot button topics. For homework, as we mentioned, you were asked to create a list of your 3 to 5 hot button topics. Let's take a look at some hot button topic lists for some of our previous classmates. Bill likes diving for lobsters, flying, growing fruit trees, butterfly gardening, and piano playing. Julie likes grandchildren, golf, writing children's books, travel, and prayer. And Melba likes to talk about church, grandchildren, and growing flowers. If you're viewing with a group, why not pause the video now and take a few minutes for each person to list their hot button topics? Take time to just list the hot button topics of everyone else in your viewing group, creating the list such as you see here. Now, once you have your list created, how do you steer a conversation onto a topic of your choice instead of enduring a one-sided conversation? The authors suggest 2 solutions. The first one is the indirect approach. Try dropping a hint. You can indirectly drop clues that help reveal who you are. Melissa, for example, says she would include, "Are you at all interested in drama? That's a big interest of mine, and I really enjoy talking about it. Right now, I'm in the middle of directing a play." Now, you will also notice in this example, Melissa has included some specific information. Right now, I'm in the middle of directing a play, which the conversational partner can pick up on and begin the conversation. If I was Melissa's conversational partner, I may begin by asking her about the play she's currently directing. Any number of interesting questions may follow depending on her response. Now, if you're viewing in a group, why not take a moment to pause the video and think of some questions that you could ask Melissa about her hot button topic of drama? Now, if the indirect approach that Melissa used doesn't work, maybe a more direct approach is in order. David says something like this: "I've enjoyed listening to you. Now, why don't we talk a bit about current events? That's a topic I'm more informed about. Here are my thoughts on the election." So in this example, David has steered the conversation onto a very specific topic, and he has volunteered the first exchange when he says, "Here are my thoughts on the election." How would you respond if you are his conversational partner? I would probably respond by asking him why he was so passionate about one of his specific points, and then solicit his solution to the problem. Again, if you're viewing with a group, you might wish to pause the video and imagine how you would engage in a conversation with this topic of David's. Being direct with people with whom we are friends is still a very difficult thing for some people. I believe that many people, rather than be direct, just make an excuse that they have to go, or they show no interest, or they look off into the distance waiting for their opportunity to speak again, or worst of all, they start scrolling on their phone. If we are to build mutually respectful relationships with one another, we must learn how to be direct with one another out of love for each other. As you know, once a partner in conversation has been given a model, i.e., asking direct questions, they're likely to mimic that model and develop the same types of questioning skills towards having a mutual exchange in a conversation that brings about true fellowship in relationships. I love what Paul has to say in Ephesians 4:15. "Instead, speaking the truth in love, we will grow to become in every respect the mature body of him who is the head, that is Christ." This verse emphasizes the importance of combining honesty with love in our interactions. Well, we were asked for homework to write some descriptions of what you like to talk about for your specific hot button topics. By writing a two-sentence description of what you like to talk about will help guide your conversational partner onto a conversation of one of your hot button topics. Here's an example of one of my husband Bernie's hot button topic descriptions for his topic of scripture. He says, "Scripture is alive, and you can put it alongside any news item today and find a commentary of our current world events." All right, we're going to see an interview now.
Please understand that you like to bake. Hey, Mary Louise, I understand that you like to bake.
You know, I do.
Yeah, tell me.
I love to bake. I bake all the time for my family.
Mm-hmm.
And I had the bright idea in January of sourdough bread.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I have several family members that are intolerant to gluten.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done some research and found out that sourdough bread, because it only has three ingredients,
Right.
water, flour, and salt, people are able to eat it who have a gluten intolerance because
wow.
it actually heals the gut. Interesting enough, I'm a caveat here.
Mm-hmm.
I also did some research in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Sourdough bread was actually the bread that they used in the Old Testament.
Oh, really?
So when the Bible translates to yeast or leaven,
Mm-hmm.
if you do a word search on it, you will go back and find out it was actually the sourdough bread.
Really?
It was the sourdough that they used because they didn't have yeast at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking, okay, this has got to be healthy. So anyway, I decided, yeah, I'm going to try this. Boy, has it been a journey.
Yeah, so you started in January. How did you get the yeast or whatever to start the whole thing?
Well, see, it's a lot of trial and error.
Mhm.
It's a lot of research, but basically, you just start out with like so many grams of distilled, not distilled, but drinking water. Like,
Yeah,
what is it? Not
right out of the tap.
no,
Oh,
no, no, no.
purified water.
Purified
Oh,
water,
purified. Okay.
Okay, so many grams of purified water and so many grams of water. It's all you use. So many grams of purified water and plain flour.
Okay.
Okay.
White flour.
Yeah. You just put it in a jar and you let it sit for 24 hours. Then you pour off half of it.
Okay.
And you feed it with water and flour.
So you pour half of the mixture off and then you add
New
water and new flour.
So you do that for like 3 weeks to build up
my
to
goodness.
build up the fermentation, the fermentation process. So there's a lot of discard. And so by the time you get to it being fermented, you can actually use the discard to make crackers and so forth. There's recipes for those.
Oh wow.
But this was in the winter. So
does that make a difference?
It makes a big difference.
Why is that?
Because especially in Florida, the humidity means less hydration. I found that out the hard way. In the winter,
that sounds like a story.
It takes longer for the dough to ferment, and then you cold proof it overnight. No big deal. Had it down.
What is cold proof?
Okay, so what you do is you mix it up.
Yeah.
And then 30 minutes to an hour later, you stretch and fold, stretch and fold, stretch and fold, and then 30 minutes to an hour for 4 times. And then you let it ferment till it's, well, gosh, it's a process. And it's so frustrating and it's so hard. But anyway, it has to look a certain way.
Okay.
And then you take it out and shape it. And you have to build tension. And then you put it in a banneton, which is a basket, and you cover it and put it in the refrigerator for anywhere from up to 24 hours.
So is that some special kind of basket you use?
Yes, it's a banneton, and some of them are made of reed, some of them are made of cane. It's kind of a wooden porous thing.
So it's really like back to nature there.
Yeah. So some are round, some are oblong. And so anyway, you put it in the basket and you ferment it. The longer you ferment it, the more sourdough taste you get. And so when you take it out, you score it and then you put it in the Dutch oven and bake it. It has to be baked really hot. When summer came, I thought, what in the world is going on? That thing was flat as a pancake.
Really?
So back to researching. You got to reduce the liquid because there's so much humidity in the air, and the fermentation is half the time because it's so warm.
So that made it
Yeah.
rise.
I'm just now getting to the point. I figured out the summer recipe, if you will, because in the process, it's like having a pet.
Oh yeah. So who eats the bread?
Well, first of all, my family.
Yeah.
And then I started giving it to friends.
Oh yeah.
And now that I've kind of gotten to the point that I feel like I have almost mastered it, I'm starting to sell it to people.
Oh, well, good for you.
I'm going to tell you why. Because I have thrown out and used so much flour.
Oh, no.
And of course, you have to buy the water. And so I'm just like, man. But, I do like to give it as gifts.
Yeah.
And then if people want to buy it, sure, they'll help me buy a bag of flour.
Well, this has been fascinating, and I can't wait to taste it.
Yeah, it's fun. It's an outlet for me.
Hey, Mary Louise, I understand.
So here is Mary Louise's sourdough bread, and I can tell you it really does taste excellent.
So Mary Louise, I've really enjoyed hearing about your sourdough bread. So I wonder, could we talk about family history here for a moment?
I would love to talk to you about family history because I know, because we're friends, that you travel all over the country gathering family history. And it's so fascinating, the things you've learned. So tell me about that. What got you interested?
That's a good question. I'd love to tell because it just sort of happened. For years, my mother was always after me, do the family history research. And I didn't know, what in the world is she talking about? I didn't know. And then when she died, I found a handwritten journal from 1801, the family leaving Washington, D.C., and traveling by foot all the way across the mountains into southwestern Pennsylvania. And I thought, oh my gosh, I have lost a resource here.
Mm-hmm.
So when my father's family was about to lose one of the elder statesmen, I said, oh no, I'm not going there again. So I decided to take a free 2-week trial of Ancestry.com, and I filled in everything I knew. I went to the reunion, and I started telling them, oh, the great great grandfather's this and the great great grandmother is that, you know. And all of a sudden, the sick person threw off her blankets, jumped up from her bed, ran away to the bedroom, came back with this big brown envelope that she dumped it out on the coffee table. She says, who are these people? And I'm like, oh, okay. So I opened this paper very gingerly. It's parchment, real parchment, you know, and there's linen seals. And then I look, there's the signature of the governor of Virginia, 1790.
No way.
And I'm like, and there's 4 of them. So, you know, there was 3 of us cousins that are real close in age. And so each of us there were 3 different ones, four documents altogether, but 3 different names. So I looked at one, I said, that's my grandfather's middle name, this surname. So I said, this has got to be family. So each of us took one name. We went on the internet. Within 30 minutes, we had discovered our 4th, 5th, and 6th great grandfathers. And the 5th great grandfather's cabin still stands in the city park in Bluefield, West Virginia. So I thought, man, if stuff like this is still around that I have a connection to, what else can I learn? So we just sort of went wild at that moment. We called the city park and said, my great 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 grandfather built a cabin standing in the park. And they said, no way. I said, yeah. They said, you got to talk to the town historian. So they gave me this guy's phone number. I call him at 6:00 at night. He's the newspaper editor. He says, wow, if you want to come up, we'll show you the cabin. The DAR takes care of it, and we'll open it and show it to you. So we went. And while we were there, he brought a news crew. And they wrote an article, 5th great granddaughter comes home.
What?
So we're viewing the inside of this cabin, and just to know, this was my ancestor that built this cabin in 1793. The date's still on the chimney, on the the stone chimney, and that was just incredible. So when we finished, he said, "Now, would you like to meet a cousin born in the cabin?" I said, "Yeah, I would like to meet." So they took us across town. We met this 91-year-old man, and he knew all the family history. It was so incredible. So the most interesting thing to connect with this particular story, when we moved into where we're living now in Sebring, and we had a potluck. And we went to the potluck the first night, and we sat at a table. There was a couple there, and I said, well, what's your name? She says, Nancy Bailey. And I about died because I have a cousin on my mother's side of the family named Nancy Bailey. So I'm thinking, I wonder if she's related anyway to my cousin's husband's family from South Carolina. So I said, where are you from? She goes, I'm from Bluefield, West Virginia. I said, switch gears now, because that's my father's side of the family. I said, and what's your last name? She says, Bailey. I said, oh my goodness, because originally the history was that my family, which was named Davidson, and a family named Bailey went from another part of Virginia down there to establish the town in the 1760s before the Revolution. And the first thing they did was they built a fort to protect against Indian attack. And it turns out that her husband's family is the original people that went with my family in the 1760s to establish the town of Bluefield. And could you imagine, here we are,
in Sebring.
In Sebring with a lady. It's just incredible. So she's invited us to come visit her.
Oh, good.
In October.
Good.
Yeah.
So here is the Joseph Davidson cabin in Bluefield, West Virginia, as it appeared before the 2024 Hurricane Helene that devastated much of western North Carolina. After finishing in North Carolina, Helene passed right through Bluefield, West Virginia, damaging the roof and some of the top logs of the cabin. and my friend Julie happened to be passing through Bluefield on her way back to Canada. She swung by and photographed the cabin, and this is when I learned it had been damaged in Hurricane Helene. So here's Julie's watercolor painting of the cabin, complete with the damaged roof. As I was preparing this recording, I went online to see what the current status of the cabin was, and I discovered the city of Bluefield has contracted with a TV reality show called Barn Builders, located in West Virginia, to repair the roof. Upon inspection, this barn builders decided that they needed to completely disassemble the cabin, do needed repairs, pour a new concrete pad for a stable foundation, and they were planning to reassemble the cabin with a new roof in the spring of 2026. At this recording, summer of 2026, the cabin had not yet been reassembled, and I'm hoping it will be by our fall 2026 trip up there, as I would love to see it with the new roof and the fall foliage. So in reflection, if I'd never thought to spend a little effort to research my family history, would never have known about the cabin or indeed about my family's contributions to the early settling of our nation. I encourage anyone to just give family history research a try. And with AI today, you can easily access a load of records and get direction on where to look and what to look for. So happy hunting. All right, now it's time for our interaction. If you're viewing with a group, go ahead and pause the video and complete the activity. Take out your hot button topics list, and I hope you have also included descriptions or details about your hot button topics to help your conversational partner pursue one of your topics with you. So here's the instructions. Each is going to take a partner that you don't know very well. Open a conversation about one of your partner's hot button topics using his or her topic list and descriptions or details. Try to sustain the conversation for 5 minutes and take notes what your partner says. After 5 minutes, you're going to switch roles, and then your partner will ask you a question about one of your hot button topics. You'll go for an additional 5 minutes. Now, in your viewing group, after everyone has been introduced through your partner's summary, then it's open to anyone to ask a follow-up question of anyone whose story interests you. So go ahead and pause the video in your viewing group. Now, we are going to repeat the same interaction, but everyone, please change partners at your table. Do a second choice of your hot button topics. Go ahead and pause the video with your viewing group. Now, after everyone's been introduced to their partner's summary, then it's open to anyone to ask a follow-up question of anyone whose story interests you. Again, pause the video in your viewing group. Now, here's our assignment for week 4. Using one of your hot button topics and your lead-in description, that's your 1 to 2 sentence description, try to engage someone in conversation. If desired, share your experiences in next class with your viewing group. So we've reached the end of this session, and I want to thank you for joining in today. I hope you were able to view with a group and were able to do the activities together. Next time, we'll be talking about asking questions in the family, questions you can ask your children, whether you are still have them under your guidance or if they're grown. So until next time, Sasha says, see you soon. Blessings and bye-bye.